All right, Daily Ticker Time, presented by our wonderful friends at Pelican Brewing Company.
Try that.
I would love to try a Pelican brew right now. Doesn't that sound good?
That with a cowboy pizza.
God, sounds good. Yeah, you've been talking about cowboy pizzas all morning.
I've been craving one of those.
Nice to know that all their locations, it seems like, are doing fine. The tsunami did not hit our wonderful friends at Pelican. That was the first thing I thought. Don't you dare touch my Pelican brewery.
Well, they have a tsunami stout. That's still going.
They do it. That is still on tap. You can go check out one of their 4 coastal locations, Cannon Beach, Tillamook, Pacific City, and Lincoln City. Pelican Brewing Company, born at the beach. You know what starts today, Brandon Sprague?
Yes. Injected into my veins.
Oregon State Fall Camp.
Yeah,
it's back, baby. Joining us now, our good friend Ryan Clarke, Ryan T. Clarke on Twitter, who now is covering the Oregon State Beavers for the Oregonian as they get ready. He's heading down to Corvallis today, opening day. They're going to have a little press availability after no big media day for the Beavs. So we thought, let's get Ryan on, talk about some storylines going into the year. So, Ryan, good morning to you. Just the thought and the vibe. Day one of fall camp. It's a very interesting year for Oregon State. Expectations, we've talked about it in the last few days, all over the map. Where's Ryan Clarke at on the start of Oregon State fall camp?
Yeah, I think there's a sense of optimism in Corvallis as the dust is, I guess, beginning to settle on the college football landscape, relatively speaking, for them. And, the Pac-12 coming back next year. This final year of the Pac-2, I think that there are improved expectations for Oregon State. I think that it's a year that they feel optimistic about. A tough schedule early on, but I think really opens up from there. And there's an opportunity maybe for this team to, win 7 or 8 games.
There's a lot of, I think, positions that we could talk about and have questions about. The one thing I'm kind of just generally curious is they just lost the D coordinator out of the blue. Then he landed somewhere else, and now the D coordinator is basically the coach. I mean, this is a guy that coached the defense when he was just the coordinator for Jonathan Smith, now the coordinator and head coach. How do you think balancing being the head coach and defensive play caller is going to go for Trent Bray?
I think he will thrive in it, frankly. I think he's a guy that, embraces that sort of, too muchness of being a coach. He's got the right attitude for it. And I think that he's also, logistically built out his staff in such a way where he's got more assistants now doing more specific things, working with specific position groups. And that, I think, will allow for a more individualized approach for guys being coached up well. He coordinates the defense, and he won't have to worry, I think, on the offensive side much either with Ryan Gunderson. That's a guy who now bringing Malik Murphy in at quarterback is going to have a lot more freedom to call plays.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the follow-up that I have there, Ryan, is they got off to a good start last year. The season crumbled, and I think largely in part because they just didn't have a functioning offense and a functioning passing game. And they've added Malik Murphy to the mix. What are people down there saying about him, and what are the expectations for him this year with Ryan Gunderson finally having an actual quarterback?
I think that there is a lot of hype around Malik Murphy. He's a guy that, they didn't go out and spend a reported $1.5 million in NIL for nothing. This is a dude that, despite throwing 12 picks last year, it has added a dimension to this Oregon State offense that, like you said, they simply did not have last year. They weren't really a big play team. They weren't really sometimes an any play team through the air. and that, I think, element is going to be much more prominent. You saw in a brief window in the spring game that the guy's a quick decision maker. He's not just throwing the ball deep downfield, although he loves to check it deep, and he's got, I think, receivers that are fast enough to catch up with it. But a really charismatic guy, big, strong, somebody that I think Beaver Nation's going to fall in love with so long as things go the way that people think it's going to go for Malik Murphy.
There's some pretty good talent in the backfield with Hankerson coming back. We know their targets. People are pretty excited about what they're returning and then anxious to see some of the new guys in the fold there. Tight end seems to be a pretty good position for them. I guess I didn't really have questions about the offensive line. Personally, I think they upgraded with coach at that position. That is a staple of Oregon State. And Mike Cavanaugh finding his way back to Corvallis after leaving for a few years now. What say Ryan Clarke? What do you think about the offensive line? Because if that thing can get going, your passing attack should be fine, and we know the run game should be okay. But there are some that are kind of wondering aloud, is this group ready to handle the day-to-day of what this offense needs them to do? Where are you at on the offensive line?
Yeah, I think that they are. I think they have the talent, and I think they have the experience. The big question for the offensive line this fall, unfortunately for the Beavers, is health. They had 5 guys in the spring who are potential starters who missed essentially the entire spring. That's 2 tackles in Jacob Strand and Tyler Morano, 2 guards in JT Hand and Tyler Volton, and then center Van Wells. Any of those guys has the positional versatility to fill in for the other, but we'll see, and maybe we'll have a little more information today about their availability going forward. But if you're the Beavers, you're hoping that all 5 of those guys are healthy because, yes, you have other pieces and you have the depth that you might need, but at the same time, that's 5 starting caliber offensive linemen. So I think that it's less a question about ability and experience and more about health going into the early part of the season.
Interesting. We're talking with Ryan Clarke covering the Beavs for the Oregonian. You can go give him a follow on Twitter at Ryan T. Clarke. Find all of his stuff, OregonLive.com. One of those pieces up, Ryan, is your biggest question marks going into the year, biggest storylines, I should say, as Oregon State is beginning fall camp. So of all the ones we've asked you, what else is on the list for you that you're most curious or excited to find out about as camp opens up today?
Yeah, I think that, this is something that the Beavers are hoping they don't see much of in practice by way of protecting Malik Murphy, but pressuring the quarterback is something that everyone's aware of. The Beavers really had issues with last year. 7 sacks all season. That's obviously not going to cut it in a 12-game season, and that was dead last in the country. So they added a couple of guys. Kai Wallen is one of them from Nebraska. He's somebody that people are really excited about. He's a fisherman. He loves to get out in the Great Northwest and go fishing. And they also, on the defensive line, had 5 defensive tackles who were injured pretty much all of last year. So getting those guys back, adding in a couple new pieces on the edges, how this team gets after the quarterback, whether it be in fall camp or, once the schedule gets rolling in August, I think is a big thing for the OSU defense.
I'm just curious, when you think about ceiling for them, floor is tough. I know the schedule starts out tough for them, but then they have some games that I think people are going to say, well, they should be favored in that one. They should have an advantage in that one. Tough non-conference games with Oregon and Texas Tech. I don't know what to make of some of the other teams that they'll be like. Is Appalachian State good? I have no idea. What is the floor for Oregon State in your mind, and what's the ceiling for Oregon State in your mind?
I would say that the floor would be a disappointing sort of 6-6 season where, yes, you're bowl eligible. Yes, you improved upon last year, but you slip up in games that, frankly, down the stretch, you're supposed to win. You mentioned the early part of the schedule. I think that Cal, Texas Tech, and Oregon are the big ones to circle, Cal being at home for the opener and then Texas Tech and Oregon both being on the road. The Beavers could very well start the season 1-3 and then finish it with 8 wins as a potential ceiling, with the only other real challenge I would see among those teams in the home stretch being the road game at Washington State. No matter how bad Washington State might be this year, Pullman's always a tough place to play, but there's a chance they could rattle off a good number of games down the stretch there. They got to travel a long way for that Appalachian State game all the way to Boone, North Carolina. Obviously the road game at Tulsa is a long way to go too, but these aren't programs that I think are on the same level as Oregon State at this point in the college football landscape.
Yeah, I'm curious, Ryan, I don't know if are you going to travel to road games this year covering the team?
Yes, sir. I will be on the road for the game at Tulsa and on the road at Texas Tech, and then obviously, the games in Eugene and Pullman will be there as well.
So which one are we most excited for? I know Eugene does. You've been to Oregon. You covered the Ducks, so you know that well.
It would be funny if he said Eugene.
yeah. Because I don't have to get on an airplane to go cover that road game.
Also
that
knows
is nice.
The food spots.
That is true. You know the food spots. What road trip are we most excited for?
Honestly, Pullman, never been up there actually. Which, as a Pacific Northwest boy, I'm excited to get up to Pullman, see the atmosphere, and enjoy it. I think that between all of those games, I'm sure there are a lot of fine people in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Lubbock, Texas, but those are not vacation destinations. Let's say
Just
going to be some interesting travel. Although the Texas Tech atmosphere for football should be a lot of fun.
Watch out for those tortillas. I hear the tortillas go flying at kickoff. You got to be careful.
Ryan just wants to be a Northwest boy eating Cougar Gold cheese.
Just give him some Cougar Gold cheese, man. That's all he needs.
Ryan, do you think I don't really have any quarterback related question, because if Malik Murphy is healthy, Malik Murphy's the starter. There's not really even a conversation. Do you think they work in Jabari Johnson? Is there any thought in your mind that if they can stay somewhat healthy, they might throw wrinkles in where we use the Jabari Johnson athleticism?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that Trent Bray even said explicitly after the spring game, is that he plans to, regardless of who starts, which wink, wink, obviously Malik Murphy is going to start, but Jabari Johnson's going to get in there, and he's a guy that his athleticism was on display throughout the spring, and if it weren't for the caliber of Murphy, he'd be, I think, competing for a starting job in Corvallis. So Bray even talked about the two of them playing at the same time, which is kind of a crazy thing to say out loud, but who knows? We'll see. I think we'll see Jabari Johnson frequently throughout the season.
Andrew, I don't know what that formation looks like now. I'm intrigued for the opener against Cal. It'll be here before we know it.
Can you put two guys behind an offensive lineman at the snap?
Line them up next to each other. Which one's quarterback? You don't know. You got to guess, man. Ryan Clarke covers the Beavs for the Oregonian. Go check out all his great work, OregonLive.com. Give him a follow on Twitter at Ryan T. Clarke, where you can see all of his reporting on the Beavs who open up fall camp officially today. I'm sure there'll be videos and quotes later today, as they're not having a full media day, but a little press availability after practice. Excited to have the Beavs back at Reser practicing today. Ryan, thanks for the time this morning, man. Enjoy day one, and let's do this again soon.
Absolutely, boys. Thanks again.
There you go. Ryan Clarke of the Oregonian is your Oregon State Beavers, even though you're a duck honk, open up fall camp today.
Yeah, that's what I'm known as, the duck honk who went to Oregon State.
You're the duck honk on this show. Why would I listen to those guys in the morning? It's just 3 duck honks on that show. That's it. We did have, I will answer a question from this is not a Millsack segment, I promise.
Yeah.
I do have something college ball related I would like to get to in a moment.
Okay.
We had a listener who tweeted us yesterday and said, let me pull this up so I read it verbatim. Basically, can I give a criticism of the show without giving a criticism of the show? And I was like, well, that's an interesting way to phrase it, but sure, go ahead. I said, here's what I said. Can I sort of call out your show without mean-spiritedly calling it out?
Yeah.
Every time you get a college football-related guest on, it's all Oregon plus national talk. You never ask them if they have any opinions on Oregon State, which I'd be curious to hear from a national perspective.
I will answer this.
Fire away.
We've heard this before.
Yes.
This is kind of the unfortunate state of the sport. If you say national college football guy, let's use Rhett Riancia as an example that we had on a few weeks ago. Okay, actually Brett Ciancia. Gotta just use him. Good friend of the program.
Yeah.
He does a preview magazine similar to Phil Steele. Quite literally, do not ask me Oregon State questions.
He just verbatim told us before the interview, do not ask me a question about Oregon State.
We could ask Josh Payton Oregon State question. He's going to give you generalized, we'll see, you hope things break your way.
Right.
That's kind of it.
Malik Murphy thought, because he's a guy who played in the ACC last year.
The reality, unfortunately, is that when we get these national guests on, they're just not paying attention to it anymore because they're not in a power conference.
Especially for the year that they had last year. If Oregon State wins 10 games this year, people will pay attention to what they're doing.
They'll get some recognition.
There'll be a talking point going into year one of the new look conference.
But it's largely like, don't watch it, don't follow it. The Pac-12's dead. It's Power 4 now. Like that, it's not a slight against Oregon State on our end. It's more like the guest is going to give you, in my opinion, no real thought other than, yeah, I feel so terrible for them. And you've already heard that a million times, and you don't want to hear that again. So fair to say, and I like that, like, can I give you a criticism without sounding mean-spirited?
I mean, I get it from the fan base perspective. I want to hear thoughts on my team if I'm a Beaver fan. I totally get the argument.
It's going to be a weird year. I've been telling Dirt this behind the scenes. It's a very weird year. I really am pulling for them to be 9-3 or better. I don't know how realistic that is. But my expectation, I think Clarke is right. The floor should be 6-6, and we're going kind of a disappointing season, but they're a bowl team.
Yeah.
And if it's worse than that, there needs to be a real, like, this needs to be blown up and restarted in a different way because this vision isn't working. So I'm hoping for 8-4 better. That's my pie in the sky. Please give that to me. It's going to be a funky season, I think.
I will say this, at least. I don't know how much they'll change. I do think things will be slightly different a year from now.
When there's a conference.
When they're in a conference, they're not in this weird purgatory state of they don't exist in a conference. They're playing the same team twice in a month at the end of the year.
I don't think it's fun. I don't think it's cute. I think it's a joke, to be honest.
Great, but they also didn't have a lot of other options because you can't create a schedule out of thin air, and they lost the Mountain West scheduling agreement. So
agree.
The fact that they were able to get Texas Tech and Houston and Cal and some of these other schools even be on their schedule is a great place to start. But I think some of the messaging and the talking points around the program will change a year from now. Is that guaranteed? I don't know. But I do think the conversation around a team making it to the playoff as a group of 5 is an interesting one. We do that with Boise. We've done that with Tulane. We look around the UNLV, right. Who's the team that's going to make it? That's a talking point going into the year. And right now they're just in this weird purgatory state where they're technically still there, but they don't really exist in an entity that matters.
Right.
And that makes talking about them incredibly challenging from a national perspective. And that was the Daily Ticker, brought to you as always by Pelican Brewing Company. They invite you to take a beach break at one of their 4 coastal locations: Cannon Beach, Tillamook, Pacific City, and Lincoln City. Pelican Brewing Company, born at the beach.